in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Die. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10% luck, 20%.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. And a lot of Bitcoin news to go over. Currently, Bitcoin is sitting at around $935.20 in exchange U.S. currency. It's had pretty sharp ups and downs, and we're going to really start diving into that, and we'll spend the first part of the broadcast here getting into the different factors that are causing Bitcoin to, I don't want to say be unstable, because really what it's doing is it's staying around that same area, low of 925 and high of 955, but it's been sharp jumps and sharp falls and sharp jumps last 24 hours, and there's a lot to deal with when it comes to why it's doing that. And I'm kind of glad that I see it really staying level, because that's showing people are actually trying to figure out what's going on. The sharp jumps and falls, that's because some people are like, well, maybe I want to get rid of mine. People were like, well, I think I better buy some while it's still down, because there's factors that could make it swing both ways. I think, long term, I think we're probably still going to see it be a, viable source. But that also relies on other factors that haven't started to play out yet. But for now, I still see it as something that will be stable. I got one right here. Gerald Celente, Bitcoin, Economic Turmoil and Revolution in 2014. And, we'll go ahead and dive into this one to start off the broadcast here. And again, Bitcoin's at probably around it. Right here it says 935.20. So it's holding pretty firm right now. But here we go.
So this is Lou Grudowski of WeAreChange.org here with Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal. Now, Gerald, you have been right so many times economically and just with all your predictions. But one thing I really wanted to talk to you, because I really appreciate your work, is where do we go in the future? What should we do? I mean, I know you do the economic stuff, but as a solution to all the problems, because we know the bankers are looting, we know the government is lying to us, is there a solution? Is there an answer to all these problems?
Sure, there are a lot of answers. Number one is you have to break up the gang. People like to call them the Republicans and Democrats, but they're the Bloods and the Crips. They're murderers and they're thieves. They start wars and kill innocent people, and they steal our money. And when you look at the Founding Fathers, they were all opposed to this.
Yep.
And so we have to break that up. And the other thing we have to do is put back in place things that worked before, the restoration of America. So you put back in, they talk about the Volcker Act. Who is a Volcker Act? Put back the Glass-Steagall Act, word for word.
Yeah.
It prevented it from happening before. It'll prevent it from happening again. Put back the Robinson-Patman Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act, that allowed the everyday person to become an entrepreneur. Now you can't compete against the multinationals. Get rid of these other things, these hedge funds and private equity groups, and of course, no foreign entanglements.
Yeah.
That's the big one too. You know, so yeah, it can be changed.
Is it possible? I mean, do you see it happening in the near future? And what do you see happening?
People. It's up to the people.
Yeah.
It's up to the people, and that's why events like this count.
Yeah.
And
To
what
me,
you're
it's
doing and what everybody's just trying to do.
To me, it's just open a door, give them the information, and hope that they walk through.
Not hope.
Yeah.
No, that's up to them. But you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hope is the most negative word in the metaphysical dictionary.
That's very true. You're very right. You're putting me on the spot.
I got one for you here. Hope and change. How's that? Does that fit well?
I just like knowing and believing that the potential out there for the world to be totally different is right in front of us.
It is.
But it's up to us to grasp it. And I hate using the word hope, and I use it sometimes only because it means that we believe in it.
No,
and I believe in it.
No, hope is the action.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, busting your chops. But the hope thing. But no, really, it's just up to the people. Look, there've been revolutions before.
Yeah.
I bought these buildings in Kingston, in colonial Kingston, pre-Revolutionary War buildings, 3 of them, because I want to see the Second American Revolution. This is my country. I love this country. I don't want a violent one. I want an intellectual, moral, and a spiritual revolution.
More of an evolution.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Process.
Again, a higher civilization.
Yeah.
Now, this is, again, look at the people that are running us. How could anybody look up to these people? As I said, anyone who looks up to them is looking down upon themselves.
Now, a lot of people have been moving towards electronic currencies like Bitcoin and moving away from the bankers. And I really wanted to get your honest opinion of what do you honestly think of these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin?
They're not for me, and I could be 100% wrong on this. We did a big story in the current edition of the Trends Journal. Alex Silberman, our senior editor, did it. And you could see what happened, the volatility with it. When China doesn't want it, Canada doesn't want it. It's, I'm a gold and silver guy. I want things based on that. They're going to see more digital monies coming into the system. I think Bitcoin's not the last one. We have new ones coming in already. So they're not for me. But again, I'm not telling people what to do, and I could be, it's not one of the things where I say, look, I'm really sure about this. So that's why I leave it, because I just don't know, but it doesn't sit right. I remember the dot-com bubble crash of the late 1990s. Yeah. And this has a flavoring of that to me.
Are you sure about anything coming this year in 2014?
Well, you never know, there's so many wild cards on the deck. But as the economy, we're looking for some real turbulent economic times by, I'm going to say, before the end of the second quarter of 2014. They're going to taper again. And when that happens, you're going to see the world equity markets, particularly the emerging markets, you're going to see money sucking out of them. It's already happening. And what they're going to end up doing is they're going to come up with a new scheme for stimulus. They'll call it something else. They got Janet Yellen in. They can make up a new name. So I think there's going to be some real big problems. China's having a load of problems, too. I love it. They call it shadow banking. In the Bronx, we used to call them loan sharks. Yeah, and something like 50% of all the lending going on right now, and they got a real estate bubble going on. It's coming from the shadow banking, and then you have the same thing in the ECB. Interest rates are at record lows, so they're going to have to do something to change this. So,
now my last question it's more of a personal question. You're very open-minded. You speak from the heart, and you're very honest with everyone. What made you the person that you are right now? I know you had a very illustrious career. I know you did so many different things, but what was it? Was there one moment or one thing in your life that just snapped and changed you and made you the person you are right now?
What the beginning line was, I used to be a chief government affairs specialist of the chemical industry in D.C.
Wow.
Yeah, 28 years old. I was staying at the Willard Hotel and putting on my meetings at the Hay Adams.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I spent a lot of time in D.C. And one time, Jimmy Carter had just come back from Iran, after spending New Year's Eve with the Shah and his wife. And he announced to the American people that the Shah was the island of stability in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I knew that this thing was going to collapse. I knew what a brutal dictatorship it was. I knew how the CIA and MI6 overthrew the democratically elected Governor Mossadegh. And that was a flashpoint for me, because I realized as the whole nation stood behind Carter, I said to myself, oil and gold prices are going to go up, and I started investing in them. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I made enough money to quit my job. And the second part of it was growing up. You know, it happened to me around 32 years old. And then I got into alternative. I have an honorary doctorate in complementary medicine. So I started getting into alternative things, meditation, eating healthy, and, you know, finding the truth within myself. And, you know, I'm the last guy to say that I did everything right, you know. It's a learning process. Exactly. I have a saying that hell for me is taking that last breath and knowing that I wasn't the person I said I was. So it's an awakening, and you know, trying to be. I don't want to go to hell. I want to be true to myself.
Very beautifully well said. I appreciate your honesty. You're a great human being. Thank you so much.
So
here with Mark Dice and Adam Kokesh, and I decided to take them.
Okay, so there's one view on it. Turmoil. Problems with the regulation, which could, yes, that could affect it, and that's one thing I think many people are really looking out for. So I don't think it's a bad thing to, you know, make sure, definitely if you're invested in Bitcoin, anything you're invested in, you gotta really pay attention, because even if it's, you raise chickens and have eggs. You have to watch out for regulation when it comes to things like that too. They might try to regulate you out, and we've seen it actually happen. Cities will come in and annex places and then be like, oh, you got chicken? Well, no. You can't do it. Well, I've had chickens for, 15 years. Well, now you're in the city limits. No, we can't allow that. And, you have to watch out for things like that. Anything you're invested in, you have to really be vigilant on. I have one here from motherboard.vice.com. Who's willing to go to jail for Bitcoin? And, this was a older video. This was with Adam Kokesh. And I don't want to play the video or read this long article, but if you go to motherboard.vice.com/blog/who's-willing-to-go-to-gel-for-Bitcoin, you can read it. But there's a lot of points that are brought up, and they bring up the point that people have already risked a lot with Bitcoin. You've seen Silk Road go up. You've seen Tor, them using it through the Tor network. We've seen things, and yeah, they've been busted, but people are willing to do it. And, that has to do a lot with, the whole fact of a lot of wars that governments wage on their people. It's, well, we don't agree with this. Even if it's not harming another person, we don't agree with it. Therefore, we pass a law and we turn you into a criminal. And it's one of those things that'll keep popping up. It's not just going to go away. And, that's where a lot of people claim the vitality of, Bitcoin. So you can really look at it that way. I had another one here. Let me find it here. And this one was breaking the set. This was posted 2 days ago. Why Bitcoin terrifies big banks. And, there's a lot of important things that Bitcoin has done to stir up the market. And those are things that are what brings so much attraction to Bitcoin. So, let's go ahead and play this. Give me a second here. And here we go.
Understanding the way markets work can be difficult. Throw in nuanced approaches like decentralization and cryptocurrencies, and things can seem even more complicated. And while notions like digital black markets and non-national currencies may have seemed futuristic only a few years ago, today, peer-to-peer anonymous exchanges like Bitcoin is allowing is pioneering an entirely new way for the global community to think about financial systems. Knowing how cutting-edge Bitcoin is, yet having such little understanding how it actually works, I decided to speak to Andreas Antonopoulos, founder of Route 11 and co-host of Let's Talk Bitcoin. I first asked him to break down exactly how Bitcoin works and why it's so important to have a decentralized system of money.
Bitcoin at first glance is digital money, but if you look a bit deeper, you realize that that is just one of the applications enabled by an underlying network that allows a distributed system of computers to build a global asset ledger. So like a list of transactions for the entire world that shows who owns what Bitcoin when. And that's based on a really fundamental invention that allows computers to coordinate in that way without a central authority. And the thing is that central authorities in money traditionally are used as levers of power. Either to inflate a currency and cause it to lose value, which is essentially a form of confiscation or hidden taxation, when your savings account depletes in its purchasing power because the central government is printing money to finance its own activities. So, the idea of a decentralized currency is important because it removes those levers of power that people can exploit to corrupt a currency. So in this global network, everything runs based on simple mathematical rules. A fixed number of coins are issued every 10 minutes, and that amount decreases over time so that eventually only 21 million bitcoins will be issued. And that creates a fixed monetary supply, which has some interesting characteristics from an economic perspective. And all of this is done simply by consensus. It's impossible to cheat the system because once you've done the work, it's in your interest to actually get the system reward rather than try to cheat the system.
Can you elaborate on how centralized systems don't exist in nature?
Sure. So Bitcoin represents a decentralized system, and decentralized systems are usually the way nature organizes things. So in nature, you don't see hierarchical systems very much. In fact, usually what you see is these loosely coupled decentralized systems that create emergent and complex behavior based on some very simple rules repeated by thousands of members. A perfect example of that is an ant colony like the leafcutter ant, where individual members are extremely simple organisms. You can even simulate a single ant on a computer. But you put several hundreds of thousands or even millions of ants together into a colony, and they exhibit incredibly complex behavior. The leafcutter ant, for example, farms aphids as a farmed species, like a domesticated species, the way we farm cattle. And that's an incredibly complex and sophisticated behavior, but it doesn't exist in any of the individual members. It's something that emerges from the complex interaction of simple rules. Bitcoin is a system that exhibits extremely complex emergent behavior, but it's based on a few very simple rules that are followed by all of the members of the network.
Someone who sits atop of a hierarchical system is CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon. He recently denounced Bitcoin and predicted that it's going to fail. Right now, Bitcoin is still in the experimental phase, similar to what the internet was in the early 90s. What's your response to Dimon's prediction?
it's very difficult for people who have lived their entire life in a hierarchical system, especially at the top of a hierarchical system, and gain the benefits that come from that, including the ability to exhibit rent-seeking behaviors and to avoid prosecution for fraud that would put other people in jail a long time ago, and then be able to sit down and have a buddy-buddy conversation with the Secretary of Treasury without anyone blinking an eye. When they sit down and discuss competitive technologies and chuckle about them. I don't think Jamie Dimon really understands Bitcoin, but that's not surprising. It's not his role to understand the competing technologies because really he's in such a comfortable position whereby he can just receive $70 billion of free money from the Fed in the form of corporate welfare. And doesn't have to compete. And you see this across the financial services industry where competition is stagnant, really. They compete on who can financialize a derivative to exploit the market better, or who can front run sales and stock transactions on a high-frequency trading network. But in terms of consumer innovation, very little has happened in the last 50 years.
Speaking of U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, recently he said that Bitcoin gives individuals a place to hide and could allow for the funding of terrorist activities. What's your response, especially in light of the two New York executives who were just charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, by selling over $1 million in Bitcoins to the black market website Silk Road?
Well, Bitcoin actually offers a scale of anonymity to full disclosure of identity. On Bitcoin, it's actually harder to do strong anonymity, whereas it's easier to do strong transparency. One of the things we've seen on the Bitcoin network is the ability for charities and other public responsibility organizations or publicly accountable organizations to operate an open set of accounts and open books where everyone can see exactly what's going on. So if you want, you can use Bitcoin to deliver extreme fairness and transparency. And so far, there doesn't seem to be any indication that law enforcement organizations have any trouble tracking down transactions on Bitcoin using old-fashioned police activities. I think, in fact, Bitcoin is far more transparent than our current financial system. If you ask, for example, economists, they have no idea what the full size of a hedge fund market is or what the full size of leveraged debt is, because no one knows. A lot of this happens on closed markets where there's no accountability.
Well, the price of Bitcoin fluctuates day to day. Right now, one Bitcoin costs $776. How can this currency become accessible to someone who isn't willing to spend a small fortune on an unstable investment?
So I think it's important to recognize that one Bitcoin is not necessarily the unit you buy. Just like, for example, at the moment it's probably about $45,000 to buy a bar of gold. No one goes out and buys a whole bar of gold when they want to invest in gold. What they buy is a fraction of it. And you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can buy as little as $10 on the market. I buy every week, and I often buy as little as $10 or $20 in order to increase my investment in Bitcoin. So it's very easy to enter the market, and one of the easiest ways is to use a site like localbitcoins.com to find someone in your area who's willing to sell you a small amount of Bitcoin for cash in a safe transaction with a full escrow capability, so you can't get cheated in a public place, a park or a Starbucks, and you can buy some Bitcoin. Or you can take a product and service that you can offer and sell it to people for Bitcoin. That's also very easy to do. So the market is much more accessible than people think, but a lot of the friction is really at the edges, and it's caused by the regulators who are stomping on all of the exchanges, not providing a lot of clarity in the regulation and making it very difficult for people to transact between currencies. Once you're in the Bitcoin system, things become surprisingly fast and fluid and easy to use. And so that actually ends up revealing the difficulties and complexities of dealing with old-style currencies.
Do you worry that Bitcoin will be like any other bubble and crash eventually? And if so, will other digital currencies fill the void?
Well, the Bitcoin price has collapsed 4 times already. So, bubbles tend to inflate once and then collapse spectacularly. They don't tend to go up in price and when they have a setback, bounce back again just a few months later. That is not, the usual behavior of a bubble. Bitcoin has already had 4 major crashes where it quickly recovered, regaining its old price. and then exceeding it quite dramatically. You have to realize that Bitcoin right now at $10 billion sounds like a biggish tech stock, but is actually a puny, tiny little currency. And in terms of a currency, that is a very small pool of liquidity. So every time someone sneezes in the media about Bitcoin, all of that liquidity just sloshes around, and you get these price fluctuations. What we've seen is that over time, the volatility is decreasing quite dramatically as the volume increases, as more and more businesses invest in Bitcoin, as more and more people like me who earn their income 100% in Bitcoin use it for day-to-day spending. The price becomes more and more stable. Over time, I don't think volatility.
Oh, give me a second here.
Is going to be a big problem. Meantime, what people don't see in the background is hundreds and hundreds of startups that have significant innovation that are being invested in by mainstream investors and that are creating thousands of jobs right now. So Bitcoin is a little island of growth and jobs and opportunity and innovation in a sea of stagnant economic conditions across Europe and across the world and across the U.S. I think Bitcoin has tremendous potential because if you look behind the price of the currency, which can swing quite wildly, the technology itself is truly revolutionary and disruptive, and it has all of this potential for so many innovations in the financial services industry, which frankly hasn't moved far beyond 1950s technologies like credit cards.
Bitcoin is being used right now by thousands of people. But is this type of currency really feasible and sustainable for the entire planet to use?
I think that's an easy question to answer. Bitcoin is already working globally. Bitcoin isn't the 194th national currency. It's the first transnational currency. And sitting here today, I can pull out my smartphone and pay my subcontractor in Bangalore, India, and they will receive that payment in a few seconds. I'll pay 40 cents to send it. They will have to pay nothing to receive it. It will be in their smartphone Bitcoin account instantly. And that kind of power can revolutionize global trade, it can revolutionize services, and most importantly, it can start affecting some of the most exploitative markets in the world, the remittances market, where every year companies like Western Union extract $74 billion from the poorest people on the planet just to send money home. And with Bitcoin, we have the opportunity of rebooting those flows of money and allowing migrants, immigrant workers in this country to send money home, or in other countries, of course, to send money home to their relatives without paying 30% or sometimes even 40%. And the poorer the country, the higher the fee. So there are so many opportunities in the current financial environment, not just for innovation, but for flattening the fees that are paying for risks introduced by a lack of technology in the existing industry.
Well, this movement of decentralizing technology is making people rethink a lot of things about government and the way the world works. How do decentralized systems fit in to the world today?
Decentralized systems allow you to operate at large scale and achieve consensus. So it used to be, for example, that media organizations could only work if you had one large national newspaper and it filtered all views until only a trickle of information reached an audience and it was carefully vetted. And we've moved past that with the internet and created opportunities for more people to have a voice, because the problems of scale that centralized media solved no longer exist in a world of ubiquitous communication, so decentralized systems can solve those much better. Similarly, I think in the world of finance, we have all of these hierarchical institutions that are trying to solve problems of scale that no longer exist. And Bitcoin is a perfect example of the ability to achieve consensus on a distributed system at massive scale without the need for a central authority. So as soon as the need for the central authority goes away, the solutions that can come out of that are truly extraordinary.
Thanks so much, Andreas Antonopoulos.
And Bitcoin's not for everyone, and I'm not saying that, oh, you must invest in Bitcoin, but it's something that people look into, and I try to provide the best information I possibly can. Now, I got some more news I'm going to cover, really start getting into discussion second hour, and I will have open phone second hour. So if you want to join in on anything we go over the first hour or add into the conversation, we will have open phones. So stay tuned for that. I got some more news here. And I was going to play a couple segments, but we're going to just go ahead and, well, let me look at the time first. Okay. I'm going to skip a couple of these that I was going to play. And let me find the other ones here. Have one here out of Ben Swan. Ukraine protests prove how governments use tracking tech to control opposition. And check out my last article at Anti-Tyranny.com. I kind of go over this. So, this one was put out 4 hours ago. And we'll see what Ben Swan has to say about it. Maybe. Looks like we're having an issue here. Let me try to reload this here. There we go.
An incredible scene is unfolding in the Ukraine as a revolution is now underway. And yet that revolution may be coming to an abrupt end thanks to a powerful government crackdown. Hey there guys, I'm Ben Swan with your Truth in Media moment. In 2004, the Ukraine actually went through an uprising known as the Orange Revolution. But this time around things are different. For one, there's no election at stake, and there's no clear leader of the opposition. Though crowds are forming, demanding that leaders follow rule of law, and they say they want open borders. Well, massive crowds have been gathering, but as quickly as these protests have started, they may be coming to an abrupt end, thanks to an unprecedented government crackdown that we need to pay attention to right here in the United States. You see, at the end of last week, the Ukrainian parliament passed legislation to stop demonstrations, using language broad enough to apply really to any gathering, criminalizing things like slander, which might mean any criticism of government. They also require that members of any organization with any foreign funding, including the Greek Catholic Church, have to register as, quote, foreign agents, also known as spies. The new laws have sent police into the streets with rubber bullets and tear gas to end these protests. But get this, on Sunday, protesters themselves received a text message stating, quote, "Dear subscriber, you are registered as a participant in a mass disturbance," end quote. Meaning that not only is the government cracking down, but they're using tracking technology to pinpoint and come after anyone who protests. Think about the results of that back during the civil rights era. All the folks who marched on Washington fighting for greater civil rights. It's one thing to stand and be counted, but it's another to receive threatening messages directly to your mobile device telling you, we know who you are and where you are. Think about the ability governments now have to pinpoint those who protest or are opposition to what they do. We'll keep an eye on what's happening in the Ukraine for you. Be sure to check out all of our Truth in Media videos down below. You can also subscribe to the channel up here, and you can find me online at benswan.com, where humanity is greater than politics.
See how they're using technology with the protesters in Ukraine. And not that I agree with what the protesters are protesting for. Yes, we want to join the European Union. We want to be like them. Definitely, I think a wrong move. But look how their government's also treating them, and what's probably making them want to go the other way, and probably, due to a controlled opposition. Like, look what your government's doing. This'll be better. Another governmental control system. And this one's even more centralized. Now your government, your country's government doesn't have to worry about, we gotta, this world government we're starting over here, so, they'll deal with everything. You don't even get a vote on them. They'll just be in control. Now give us your sovereignty. And, it's, I think a wrong move for a lot of the protesters, but not to defend their government. Again, go look at the latest article I posted. What their government's doing is, pretty Orwellian, to say the least. Okay. Let me find this one I had here. Oh, come on. I think I'm going to have to start running two machines. For some reason, a lot of these websites, they're adding all kinds of other stuff that really bogs down the site. And here is one out of We Are Change, and this one's titled, Can We Think Outside of Money?
I just posted a video called Can We Think Outside the System? And in this video, I bring up the question, what is money? And I actually question its relevance in our world. And this actually created quite a bit of controversy in the comment section. And I figured I'd kind of elaborate on that specific subject about money. So in the video, I explain how asking why is it this way instead of that's just the way it is can actually bring us to the root of the basic concepts of our society and see what's it founded upon? What belief is there? And then that's what you can actually see from an objective view and figure out if it's true or not, if it's still valid. So for money, it starts off with the basic question, what is money? Now the programmed perception that most of humanity has about money is that it's happiness, it's freedom, it's self-worth, it's health, and all of those, concepts are surrounding money. But money itself, what is it? It's basically, pieces of paper, digits on a computer, or, circular little pieces of metal. That's the objective view. If you really take a detached observer view, that's what it is. So, next question. What is it for? Now, of course, the immediate answer that will come to mind is that it's to survive. It's to get access to all of the world's resources and to be able to live comfortably. Now, how about asking a question that rarely people seem to be willing to ask? And it's, why does money have to come in between human beings and basic necessities? Why does the medium for having access to the world's, abundance is always money? And if you don't have money, you're left to starve. Why? Some people will say, what do you mean the world's abundance? There's no abundance. Resources are scarce. There's not enough to feed everyone on the planet. See, that's an assumption that comes up as we ask these questions. But what I want to, bring awareness to is that we should even question those. So let's question that. Is it true that the world is scarce? Is it true that, there's not enough for everyone on the planet and therefore we should compete for it? Now, many people believe there is not enough, but if you do your research, you will find that this is a myth. Scarcity is a myth. It's actually misdistribution of wealth, of resources that create scarcity. And there's some pretty solid stats out there if you want to look it up. One in particular that I found on foodfirst.org says, the world today produces enough grain alone to provide every human being on the planet with 3,500 calories a day. That's enough to make most people fat. And this estimate does not even count many other commonly eaten foods, vegetables, beans, nuts, root crops, fruits, grass-fed meats, and fish. Another thing that I've learned is that countries that are known for famines have more than enough land, potent land to grow food, but most of it is unused. Not only that, many countries where people are starving actually export more food to the rich countries than they import food for themselves. Does that even really make sense? That to me makes it so clear that we could provide for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. That's actually a Gandhi's quote. So sorry, Gandhi, I stole your quote. So if there is enough resources on the earth to provide for everyone's need, and if we have enough land, to be self-sufficient and grow our own food, then why does money have to come in between human beings and basic necessities? Why do we have to play with so much inequality? That leads us to the concept of ownership, the belief that you can actually own nature and then do whatever you want to it, and also prevent free access, and determine who gets what. This is the role of the top of the hierarchy, meaning the elite, the government, or whatever you want to call them. And, as much as we would like to believe that they are there to serve us and take care of us, they're actually just here to control us and control society for their own interest. I mean, look at the state of our world. It's just a matter of observation to realize that, the rich are always getting richer and the poor poorer. It does not have to be this way. There's this great quote from Charles Eisenstein. He says, basically, economic growth means that you have to find something that people once got for free or did for themselves or for each other, and then take it away and sell it back to them somehow. By turning things into commodities, we get cut off from nature in the same way we get cut off from community. And please don't bring up the whole New World Order thing. I'm not talking about community or oneness as this single political authority, ruling the whole planet. No, I'm talking about actual community, people realizing, they're part of the same planet and they might as well work together and support each other. So yeah, forget about the New World Order thing. This is still in the sphere of, control, government. It's still enslavement. I'm talking about freedom here. Now, how about the idea that without money, we would not be motivated to, contribute to society or to do anything of value? I actually don't think that would be the case at all. I think that right now, our human productivity and creativity is determined by the threat of not having enough. It's the survival mode that is driving us to do that. But if you take away that equation and you have, free access to everything in the world, then you'd be you'd be connected to your own soul, basically. You wouldn't be enslaved or hypnotized by these pieces of paper. You would actually get to ask yourself, what do I want to create with my life? How do I want to contribute to society? And I feel this is a natural part that's inside of us all. We've just been disconnected to it. I really don't think that we would just, sit all day long and not do anything if we were free. And by the way, just a quick note, I'm not trying to promote any ideology or all these isms, socialism, communism. What I'm doing right now is sharing my own observations and just questioning like a 5-year-old would question the world. That's all it is. Now, I could go on and on with this subject, but I actually, laid it all out in my ebook that's for free online. So if you resonate with what I'm saying, or if you don't and you want to understand what the hell am I talking about, go and read it. It's an easy read, very simple information. There's a lot of images. It's interactive. There are links. There's stats. There's information boxes. There's, it's an easy read. And if you make it to the 2 last chapters of the book, it actually touches on our true nature as human beings on this planet. And it gives a completely different perspective than we are, born as sinners, greedy and competitive. And this, utopia that I'm talking about will never work. It actually, again, stretches the boundaries of this assumption. Anyways, this video is getting pretty long, so I'll stop it right there. If you guys enjoyed what I had to say, click like and make sure to subscribe to We Are Change and Collective Evolution. And if you have any suggestions or ideas or anything that you want to share, please share it in the comment section below. I'd be happy to interact with you guys. I think these subjects make great conversations, and, I learn too from you guys. So it's not just me trying to blurt out what I know and expect you guys to all believe this. I want to know what, the world thinks as well. So this is awesome. Thanks for watching.
Now, the things that she touched on, excuse me there's a few problems with it. One, she brings up, well, there's enough food produced to feed all the hungry. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. We don't need, government money to be able to exchange. Okay, I understand that. Yeah. Don't we have, charities that we can donate food to and stuff like that? And then we get taxed and, who knows where that money's going to when it's supposed to be for the people in need. Okay, we do these things. But then she also brought up a key point. Well, a lot of the places where people are starving, they have enough food, but they export it and they have the land that they don't use. Oh, are you talking about the countries that have the ability to farm? Well, they used to farm. Now they get their world relief supplies of rice and whatever else. They send them water. And these generations of living off of that, which is basically a welfare state, they really don't have the knowledge of farming anymore. They've been living off of world relief. That knowledge of farming doesn't exist. That died generations ago. And it was not passed down because, well, it wasn't needed. They were getting the free stuff. Wait, why would you farm when the plane and the truck shows up with pallets of rice and water and other things? What we need is people to be able to provide for themselves, not rely on others. And there's going to be instances where people do fall down on their luck, and, well, we got charities for that. And a lot of the problems in other countries is not that, well, we could be giving more food. It's, well, their government, kind of picks and chooses when it's going to allow relief in. The governments usually are standing in the way one way or another. That is what we need to try to get rid of. When a charity is trying to give relief to people that need it, we need governments to stand out of the way. And a lot of that has to do with these other countries and, their governments, which I really believe that's upon the people to stand up, and maybe neighboring countries, but I don't think we have the right to go over and start policing the world when we have our own issues that really need dealt with. There's a lot of charitable Americans out there that do try to help. Then you also find out that some of these charities, 80% of the funds coming in aren't going to the charity or, the help that's so needed. So you have to look for the decent charities out there that you know where your money's going. But, I see, well, let's just look at the name, Collective Evolution. Collective. It's that non-individualism. So, I think she kind of made it out to be, oh, there's not people out there trying to help, and what's wrong with us? And, we are trying to help. Many people are trying to help, and, I didn't agree with a lot of her points. Go to We Are Change channel. You can always comment down in the comments on that. Okay. let's see where we're at. Okay, I got one more I do want to play here. And this one is coming out next News Network. If it's going to, there we go. Cool. Thought we were about to freeze up there for a second. But, this is, will the Asian rebalance overstretch the U.S. military? And I thought that was, definitely an interesting one to go ahead and play.
Will the Asian rebalance overstretch the U.S. military? This week, House Armed Service Committee held 2 hearings on the President's Asia-Pacific rebalance and the challenges facing the U.S. and its allies in the region. This rebalance is a contemplated shift in military emphasis to the Far East. The full Armed Services Committee hearing Tuesday was called Rebalancing to the Asia-Pacific Region, examining its implementation, and 2 subcommittees on one strategic force and on the other, sea power and projection forces, held a joint hearing called People's Republic of China's Counterspace Program and the Implications for U.S. National Security. But while such far-reaching issues are being debated, there are signs that America's global policing is reaching its practical limit. As quoted in a news release, House Armed Service Committee Chairman Howard McKeon said, when the President framed the concept of rebalance, he discussed how we would now safely turn our attention to Asia because the war in Afghanistan was receding and Al-Qaeda was on the path to defeat. I'm concerned those conditions have panned out. Citing the vast array of U.S. military commitments, McKeon added, violence and instability rage in the Middle East and Africa. Preserving forces, readiness, and capabilities in the Asia-Pacific means less forces elsewhere. Can we afford to take the risk in CENTCOM or AFRICOM? AFRICOM is the African Command, while CENTCOM is U.S. Central Command. McKeon went on to say, budget cuts only exacerbate the problem, and in 2 years, military leaders are left with no choice but to cut strength, readiness, and capabilities. And that has consequences for our security and military commitments in the Pacific Command and across the globe unless we adequately resource defense. However, China's actions are worrying some congressmen, and this could loosen the government's purse strings. Sea Power and Projection Forces Subcommittee Chairman Randy Forbes, a Virginia Republican, noted in an official statement, China's efforts to restrict free access to the global commons included in outer space pose a serious challenge to stability in the Asia-Pacific. Providing our military with the resources needed to counter potential asymmetric threats to U.S. space assets must be a critical priority for the Defense Department and Congress. The Washington Post's Fred Hiatt offered his globalist perspective on the challenges of policing the Asia-Pacific region while the U.S. defense budget slowly shrinks. On January 28th, he wrote, for the United States, it's a classic challenge of alliance management. Be firm enough to deter any aggression by a potential foe, without being so unequivocally as to encourage reckless behavior by any ally. Hyatt said, in this case, the best way to walk that fine line is to be more, not less, present in the Asia-Pacific region. If the nations of the East and Southeast Asia know they can count on a U.S. presence, they are more likely to band together to quietly resist Chinese bullying. The precise course of action to take may seem elusive at this time. However, these developments suggest a time will come when policing the globe non-stop will become too burdensome to sustain. Perhaps it's time for other nations to take on more of their own defense needs. And we can all hope that the avoidance of a larger war in Syria and peaceful talks with Iran are the shape of things to come. Reducing global tensions is a wise policy.
So I don't know what you think about that. There's definitely a shift of power going on around the world, and where that's going to lead to, I'm not quite sure. It's really hard to tell. There's plenty of speeches that you can see, Leon Panetta and others talking about rebalancing Asia Pacific and looking at a lot of what's going on. Looks like a lot of talking points, so that's what makes me look at it and go, not sure where this is going. Because it kind of sounds like they're trying to put out one thing and maybe using talking points which usually aren't too accurate. And if you haven't already noticed, stocks continue to decline. And this is as the Fed continues talks about tapering off. It says they want to taper its monthly Treasury bond purchases to $65, or $65 billion. So here we go.
Stocks continued their downward trend yesterday as new Fed Chairwoman Janet Yellen stuck with the decision to taper its monthly Treasury bond purchases to $65 billion. The Dow fell nearly 190 points, wiping out the previous day's modest rally. This followed a rare unanimous decision by the Fed's Open Markets Committee to reduce its so-called quantitative easing by another $10 billion. The southern United States continues to be paralyzed by unusually severe winter weather, and some major cities have been caught entirely unprepared. In Atlanta, commuters and school children were stranded on the interstate overnight following a storm that deposited up to 4 inches of snow and as much as a half inch of ice. Atlanta is a city that has only 40 snowplows and 30 sand trucks. Many residents were left angry and frustrated by the city government's response to the storm. Today's show weatherman Al Roker pointedly criticized Mayor Kasim Reed and Georgia Governor Nathan Deal for what he described as poor planning, pure and simple. Government agencies in the southern United States may have been caught off guard by severe winter weather, but the private sector moved quickly to help people left stranded in the cold. The owner and manager of a Chick-fil-A franchise in Birmingham, Alabama, cooked hundreds of chicken sandwiches and handed them out to motorists stuck on icebound Highway 280, an interstate located about a mile from the restaurant. Store employees braved the ice and snow to distribute the sandwiches for free until the store ran out of food.
A catastrophic ice storm did not deter Dr. Zenko Ranke from performing life-saving brain surgery. When unexpectedly severe weather left roads clouded with traffic, the surgeon announced, "I'm walking," and he did, tracking at least 6 miles in the snow to perform traumatic brain surgery at Trinity Medical Center. While much of the country is dealing with an unusually severe winter, California is confronting a deepening drought. Up to 17 California communities might run out of water within 60 to 120 days, according to state officials. Some water districts are seeing wells run dry and reservoirs left empty. The Bureau of Reclamation warns that the Colorado River, a major water source for California, Arizona, and southern Nevada, is running dangerously low, and that if this trend isn't reversed soon, there's a 50% chance of water rationing in those 3 states.
Customers of the major international bank HSBC have been told they will not be permitted to make large cash withdrawals unless they can provide what bank managers consider a legitimate need for the cash. This is in keeping with a policy quietly implemented in November of 2013. A customer named Stephen Cotton told BBC's Money Box program that he filled out a withdrawal slip for £11,000 to repay a loan from his mother, only to be told that this was not a satisfactory explanation. He was finally allowed to withdraw £3,000 and that if he needed more, he would have to return the following day. Several other customers reported similar experiences.
In a Twitter comment posted just prior to Barack Obama's State of the Union address, Texas Republican Congressman Randy Weber announced he was waiting for the Commandant-in-Chief to begin his speech. Weber referred to Mr. Obama as the socialistic dictator who's been feeding U.S. a line. Texas Republican Senator and presidential hopeful Ted Cruz offered a more refined version of that assessment, using a Wall Street Journal op-ed column to express concerns about what he called the president's persistent pattern of lawlessness, his willingness to disregard the written law and instead enforce his own policies via executive fiat. In the speech itself, Mr. Obama promised what he called a year of action, in which he would ignore Congress and enact measures he considers worthwhile through executive orders and similar measures. Outspoken Texas Republican Stephen Stockman expressed his opinion of the address in quiet fashion by walking out of the House chamber before it was finished. In what was described as a radical response to Mr. Obama's State of the Union address, Seattle City Council member Shama Savant accused the president of betraying the hopes of tens of millions of people who voted for him out of a genuine desire for fundamental change away from corporate politics and warmongering. Sawan, an unabashed socialist, pointed out that she ran on a platform of $15 minimum wage, taxing the super rich to pay for mass transit and education and for affordable housing, including rent control, and suggested that her campaign embodied the kind of radicalism that had been expected from Mr. Obama.
Pretty interesting, huh? Yeah. $15. I hope no one in the chat room believes that we need to, raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think most of the people that listen to this broadcast that are in the chat room are pretty smart and understand you raise minimum wage, then everybody else's wage has to go up, because who's going to do a skilled labor for $15 an hour when you can go down and run the cash register at McDonald's for $15 an hour? Therefore, of course, their wages will go up. Everybody's wages will go up. The price of products will go up. Therefore, your minimum wage at $15 an hour does not buy you anything more. The only way for wages to go up and be beneficial is when the economy's doing good and their volunteer wage increases by companies. Because if they're forced into doing a price hike, they're going to raise the price on their products. So, I'm pretty sure no one in the chat room, thinks we should raise minimum wage. But, if you do, you can always call in. But, we do have open phones, 718-717-8296. I told you guys I would open the phone lines if anybody decided they wanted to call in. The whole way the left is trying to push, minimum wage, you want to hurt the poor. No, it's not that. But I think if someone's, life ambition is to work at McDonald's as a cashier, I think that they are the one limiting themselves. I look at it as what it's called, an entry-level job. That's not a career. A career is, I want to work my way up to be a manager of a store or a district manager. If that is your, desire, your passion, well, then go for it. But don't work at a McDonald's for, 10 years and go, I'm not making that much money. You are a cashier or a burger flipper or a cleanup, floor sweeper, and it's not to say that your work doesn't hold value, but when it's an entry level job, it's not a skilled job. There's skills that I have that, 3 years did not prepare me for it. You know, this was 10 years of doing this stuff and learning it to understand it. And if you're in one of those jobs, I want to be manager, you have to learn it. You have to learn what your manager does. You have to prove yourself. And if not, find a different job. Find something you're passionate about, something I always say on this broadcast. There's, you know, if you have a passion, follow that passion. And, you might have to work at McDonald's to, you know, put the food on your table, but on that side time, try to invest time and energy into your passion and try to create a career out of that. And it's not going to be easy, but that's okay. But minimum wage, raising that's only actually going to hurt people because they're going to expect more and they're going to find out that they're not going to get more. Pretty decent fallacy there to think that raising minimum wage is going to allow you to buy more when you clearly don't understand how the economic system works. And then they're like, well, then we should freeze prices. Oh yeah, that'll really work. So you're going to tell companies that they can't raise their price, but they have to raise their wages. And, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but a lot of these companies might go, I'm closing up shop. I'm moving to a country that is not going to dictate what I can pay my employees for the work they do, and then what I can sell my product for. The only reason why companies are still here is because they only have one of those options blocked off right now. Block off both options. You say, oh, I'm going to raise minimum wage, and then, you know, oh, you can only sell your products for what you're selling them for. No, nobody can raise their prices on products. Well, yeah, that's just, going to lead to a collapse, complete collapse. Okay, again, open phones, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. There's one at Ben Swan. I'm just going to cover it pretty quick. I'm not going to play the video, even though there is one, but it's about worthless for the radio. London, January 31st, on Saturday, 20th July 2013, from the basement of the Guardian's office in King's Cross, London, watched by two government communications headquarters, British spy agency technicians. Guardian staff destroyed hard drives and memory cards which stored encrypted files leaked by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. This is the first time footage of the event has been released. And again, you can go to Ben Swan, check that out. But in the article, they even say, you know, with technology the way it is, there's probably backup somewhere. Someone probably has backups. Not sure if you, seen this one. Ex-TSA employee to America, I saw you naked and yes, we were laughing. Jason Harrington, a former transportation security agent or administration employee, is speaking out about the screening process in American airports. Harrington is working on a book about his time with the TSA, but on January 30th, he penned a lengthy column in Politico called Dear America, I Saw You Naked and Yes, We Were Laughing, Confessions of an Ex-TSA Agent. He wrote, I hated it from the beginning. It was a job that had me patting down the crotches of children, elderly, and infants as part of the post 9/11 airport security show. Just as the long-suffering American public waiting on those security lines suspected, jokes about the passengers ran rampant among TSA colleagues. Many of the images we gawked at were of overweight people, their every fold and dimple on full awful display. He continued, I quickly discovered I was working for an agency whose moral was among the lowest in the U.S. government. In private, most TSA officers I talked to told me they felt the agency's day-to-day operations represented an abuse of public trust and funds. Harrington also said the TSA employees have their own code words. Here's a common TSA saying, decoded. Alpha TSA male speak for an attractive female passenger. BBC bogus bag check, a bullshit bag check. What happens when a not too bright X-ray operator decides to call a bag search? Opt out, a smart passenger. Retaliatory wait time. What happens when TSA officer doesn't like your attitude? There are all sorts of ways TSA officers can subtly make you wait longer to get through security. White shirt, a TSA employee who still believes his or her job is a matter of national security. And you can read the rest of it there. It's ridiculous. I don't think anything new to most people here. It's one thing trying to make someone safe, but it definitely doesn't do that. And then it takes your liberties away on top of it. You shouldn't give your liberties up for anything. Now, I have one I want to play from Next News Network, and then I also want to get into one that's more locally here in Indiana, and why this is playing. I'll find that. I have to wait. Just skip a commercial. If you're going to give me the option to skip, let me skip. There we go.
A secret committee of senior police officers in the European Union is working on a project that would mandate installation of remote control devices in automobiles that would permit police to disable them at the push of a button. The devices, which would be standard issue on all cars in the European market, would be activated by a police officer working at a computer station in a central headquarters. January 23rd marks the 5th anniversary of the Obama administration's drone campaign in Pakistan. The first drone assault occurred 3 days into Mr. Obama's first term. Since then, according to the Independent Investigative Bureau, there have been nearly 400 covert drone strikes that have killed more than 2,400 people. By some estimates, no more than 1/10 of the victims have been alleged militants.
If Scotland achieves independence, it could quickly become one of the world's wealthiest countries on a per capita basis, perhaps even the wealthiest. Commentator Dominic Frisby points out that Scotland is small with a tradition of decentralized power and a tradition of technical innovation that includes such figures as Adam Smith and James Watt. It also has access to North Sea oil, ingredients that could lead to an economic renaissance. A report by the German Bundesbank, that nation's equivalent of the Federal Reserve, endorsed the idea of an emergency capital levy. The report describes this as a potential one-off measure that would only be imposed in conditions of extraordinary national crisis.
As protests and violence continue to rage on the streets of Kiev, the Ukrainian government of Prime Minister Mykola Azarov resigned on January 28th. Azarov and his cabinet will continue in their roles until a new government is formed. The Ukrainian parliament also voted to repeal anti-protest laws that had been enacted only a few weeks earlier, a move that had further enraged demonstrators. Just before last Christmas, Arizona Senator John McCain flew to Kiev, Ukraine, to meet with leaders of the Western-backed opposition. Among them was Ole Tyanibak, leader of the Svobody Party, who joined McCain at an anti-government rally. During the late 1990s, that party was described in a report by Tel Aviv University as an extremist, right-wing nationalist organization, which identifies with the ideology of German National Socialism.
A lawsuit filed by a man who suffered a brutal jailhouse beating in Toronto accuses that city's colorful mayor, Rob Ford, of conspiring with the assailants. Scott McIntyre, who was once the common-law husband of Mayor Ford's sister, claims that the mayor arranged the attack after a confrontation at Ford's house. McIntyre was arrested after being overheard threatening Ford. A bizarre video leaked last year to the media showed an obviously impaired Ford ranting about an unidentified enemy, saying at one point, "No holds barred, brother. Either he dies or I die." Ford's attorney, Dennis Morris, has denied McIntyre's allegations.
Okay, that was a little more than just police developing remote stop technology. But something I wanted to go over, and this is happening here in northern Indiana, and it's happening around the nation. And a lot of you might be unaware. This one's from Wayne.com, WANE.com. Consumer scanners won't pick up Fort Wayne Police Department starting in early February. And why this is important is this is actually being implemented across the nation, and DHS is behind this. Your home scanner will soon no longer pick up Fort Wayne police traffic. The Fort Wayne Police Department will switch to a encrypted radio broadcast on Tuesday, February 4th. According to Fort Wayne Police Department spokesperson Michael Joynier, the department has been working on the change for quite some time and is being done to protect public safety. Bullshit. Sorry, sneeze right there, or cough, one or two. Says here, quote, "We are living in a world now where terrorists are looking for that weak link, the ability to strike," Joynier told News Channel 15. "One of those weak links is to be able to monitor where our rescuers are. We take that away from them, or from anybody for that matter. It doesn't have to be a terrorist, and it keeps them a little confused. It gives us an advantage." The change also means no more listening to communications from the Allen County Sheriff's Department. Yes, this is another thing about Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne basically has hijacked Allen County, even though they haven't completely engulfed Allen County yet. And they were able to convince Allen County to combine their communication services. So now Allen County's running on Fort Wayne's communication services. So when Fort Wayne switches, guess what? The Allen County Sheriff's Department switches. And I'm going to be writing an article outlining this, and definitely stay tuned, Anti-Tyranny.news.com. If you go there, right on the right-hand side, sign up for our email update thing right there, and you will get an email update when I get this article up. And I'm really going to dig into this and go after a lot of the unconstitutional things going on with the Allen County being taken over by Fort Wayne, and hopefully get people awake there to take back their county. Definitely the people that aren't living in Fort Wayne and are having to deal with Fort Wayne policies. Isn't that some crap? Fort Wayne policies when you don't even live in the city. definitely, a lot of overreach. Says Joynier said the scanners should still be able to pick up frequencies that fire departments use and possibly some other frequencies. He added that only media will be able to purchase the scanners and will not be made available to the general public. It's kind of disappointed that they're getting rid of it. Clayton D. Long, who bought a scanner at a yard sale a few years ago. It lets you know what's going on in your neighborhood and know who you are living by if you need that. Ever since 9/11, I can understand why the bad people would listen to it, but I also feel like it's our right to know what's going on. And that's the main point right there. They're taking the accountability away. And do you think I'll be able to purchase one of those police scanners? Looks like I'm definitely probably going to have to go through the incorporation. Because right now you think as a journalist running Anti-Tyranny News that they're going to give me a scanner? Probably not right now. I think I could eventually get to the point, but yeah. What media? What media will be able to purchase one of those scanners? Hand-picked media? More than likely. So, really, watch out in your local media about, your local law enforcement going silent on the scanner airwaves. Pretty, sad day that this kind of things are going on. I wonder if this had look and see here if this had a clip to go along with it. Doesn't look like it. Just double checking. Okay, darn it. Trying to get this to load. And it doesn't want to load. Okay. Guess we're going to skip that. And I'll try to download that. That way I can just download it and play it. Because I'm about tired of them slowing down my internet. It seems like they've definitely been causing my internet to lag. And I think they're trying to force me on to a different plan, even though I paid for a pretty high plan. Let's hope this actually loads. Even though I'm not a big proponent of GMO labeling, because I kind of like the fact that the free market has been doing quite a bit of not labeling GMOs, but allowing, companies coming out with non-GMO products. And I think that's one big thing that, more people need to be large proponents of. Because I think that can do so much more. And this is going to drive me nuts. Excuse me while I put a hole through my computer. No, okay, I can't do that. I'm on air. I might not, be on air if I put a hole through my computer. And hopefully I can find it on the second site. And I think everything's going to lock up on me. And it's attempting to. If you guys lose me, okay, I'm just close out these windows because all that's making me lag. But, what I was going to go over was basically the government banning any type of GMO labeling type, they don't want you to push for GMO labeling. I think for them to ban it shows authoritarianism, and it also shows how much of a grasp companies like Monsanto have on the congressmen and congresswomen, and you can see that. Look where a lot of their executives end up. In government. Then where do all those people end up? Back in the companies. It's a revolving door. I have here one from Ben Swan. This has to do with your gun rights. And, this definitely has to do with people in Chicago, which is about 2.5 hours away from me, which I do not cross that border from Indiana into Illinois. I kind of boycott Chicago. Let me close some more windows out here. Because all these stupid websites want to keep reloading. Okay, there we go. Let's see if it goes. But Ben Swan takes a look at the ruling by Judge Edmund Chang that Chicago's ban on gun stores is unconstitutional. Why would Ben say that the judge got it wrong? And I'm sure a lot of people are asking that. And trying to get past the commercial here. But yeah, Judge Edmund Chang said that Chicago's ban on gun stores is unconstitutional. And I'm kind of interested in why would Ben Swan say that his ruling is wrong? A lot of people are like, I thought Ben Swan's a Second Amendment supporter. I thought, well, Ben Swan, for one, yes, he's a liberty-minded person, but he also tries to stick to the truth and the laws by the Constitution and what government's authority is derived from. So you also have to look at it like that. But I think it's going to play. Here we go. Maybe.
federal judge rules that Chicago's ban on legal gun shops is unconstitutional. I'm Ben Swan. The ruling came down January 6th as U.S. District Judge Edmund Chang ruled that Chicago's ban on licensed gun stores is unconstitutional. In his ruling, Judge Chang stated that Chicago's ordinance goes too far in outright banning legal buyers and legal dealers from engaging in lawful acquisitions and lawful sales of firearms. Despite a history of strict gun policies, Chicago is one of the nation's most violent and deadly cities. In 2012, there were over 500 gun-related deaths in Chicago. That's actually up from over 10% from the rate in 2005. Which is why, for gun rights advocates, the judge's ruling came as a sigh of relief. But was the judge right in his ruling? Well, when it comes to the Second Amendment, yes. But let's take a look at why federal Judge Chang says that Chicago's gun ban was not lawful, saying, quote, "The stark reality facing the city each year is thousands of shooting victims and hundreds of murders committed with a gun. But on the other side of this case is another feature of government. Certain fundamental rights are protected by the Constitution, put outside of government's reach, including the right to keep and bear arms for self-defense under the Second Amendment," end quote. Now, the second part of that statement, absolutely true, that the right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right, protected by the Constitution, and is outside the government's reach, or at least it should be. But in his ruling, Chang concluded that the city also could not prove that banning the legal sale of guns had helped to reduce violence. Really? And that's where the judge got it wrong. Using a greater good concept to support whether or not a law is constitutional based on the results of that law, well, that's a slippery slope. If you believe that the law did a poor job of reducing violence and is therefore, in part, unconstitutional, then the converse would be true as well. If the law did a good job of reducing violence, then suddenly it would become, in part, constitutional? No, it wouldn't. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all of our Truth in Media videos right down here below. You can also subscribe to the channel and get the latest stories that affect your liberty. You can find us online at benswan.com, where humanity is greater than politics.
Now that's very important to, point out. And Cracker in the chat room, outside of government reach is supposed to be what is, given by the Constitution, the authority given by the Constitution. And, he points out an important thing. If you're basing the constitutionality on whether the law produced results that were favorable or not, is a wrong ruling, because then you're not basing the constitutionality on the Constitution. You're basing it on results. So when you reach into that realm, you can't base constitutionality. And that's what he's saying. If you're basing your constitutionality on whether the results were favorable or not, that's out of the reach of government to make that decision. All they're supposed to do is be able to say, yes, it's constitutional. No, it's not. And, well, according to everything else the judge said, no matter what, it's unconstitutional. But then he put that little provision in. He added that little tidbit, which makes it wrong. That doesn't mean it's not constitutional. It doesn't mean that part's not right. It means that by adding that little bit, he was basing the constitutionality on whether it produced the, preferred results. And, that's crap. And, we do have open phone, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. I have one from publicintelligence.net. And I just seen this go across one of my news feeds here. It It's titled Virginia Fusion Center Bulletin Tor Bitcoin Silk Road and the Hidden Internet. And it says the following report was released to law enforcement around the country by the Virginia Fusion Center in April of 2013. It describes law enforcement concerns related to the use of Tor, Bitcoins, and other services allowing greater anonymity online. The purpose of this bulletin is to provide awareness and basic understanding of the hidden internet to investigators in the field, as well as provide some examples of how the hidden internet can be exploited by criminal elements. While the term hidden internet can be used in a broader context and refer to other internet terms such as the deep web or deep net, for the purpose of this bulletin, the term hidden internet will refer to the hidden services provided by the Tor project to internet users, specifically relating to Silk Road website and use of Bitcoins. Tor project. The Tor project was initially designed and implemented as a third-generation onion routing project by the United States Naval Research Laboratory. While the encryption and design was for the purpose of protecting sensitive communications for the United States Navy, today is utilized by over 500,000 users every day for both legal and illegal activities. And this was another demonstration on how the something that the government created to protect their secrets, well, it got found out and other people exploited that to be able to hide their secrets. And that's how Silk Road was able to last as long as it did, and it was mistakes upon the owner that he made to allow him to get caught. Says here, the Tor project's primary goal is to increase privacy and security for internet users, as stated in their own 2012 annual report. This is accomplished through the Onion routing system that utilizes Tor volunteers, which are used as relays. As users connect through Tor, their data is routed through a series of relays, is encrypted, and as a result does not provide the user location, other identifying information, or original IP address. It is important to note that the use of Tor is not illegal in and of itself. Further, the use of Tor provides a service that can be a useful tool both to individuals personally for governments and law enforcement personnel. For example, Tor can provide an investigator a level of anonymity while conducting investigations covertly on the internet, such as attempting to monitor a suspect's Facebook or MySpace account without the risk of identifying the investigator's location or IP address. If electronic evidence is seized and subsequently search for digital evidence during an investigation, the discovery of the Tor software on a computer may be an indicator that not all of the individual's internet browsing history will be obtained through traditional means. And that means to the individual's internet service provider, if they get subpoenaed, they can't be able to provide that. In Bitcoins too. Anything done over the Tor network, they won't be able to provide. While Tor provides individuals the ability to remain anonymous on the internet, it would not be possible to establish a cyber black market without the ability to exchange currency. Bitcoins are a virtual currency traded online over peer-to-peer networks, allowing both the providing and receiving parties to remain anonymous to one another. In a way, but if you find someone with the wallet, and that wallet has an address of, they can see the address of that wallet, then they can trace all the amounts sent to that wallet and set out of that wallet. So, that's why encryption, when it does come to Bitcoin, is very, very, important. Not only encrypting your wallet, but then, hiding your wallet in another encryption. That way they can't even find the wallet. A lot of people don't do that. They encrypt their wallet, which prevents them from ever getting into the wallet. But if you don't hide the wallet in another encryption, then they can still find the wallet and the address. And that's how, Silk Road founder was, they knew that that was his transactions in Bitcoin wallet, and they could go, hey, look, here's a Bitcoin wallet address. We just don't know how to get into it and get anything out of it. I'm not going to read the rest of this. Publicintelligence.net, and it goes over this, and, but yeah, they're worried about it because there's over 500,000 users every day, on the Tor network, and they don't know who they are. And if you go to that website too, you can also download the PDF of the bulletin that was put out. And, the thing with using a Tor, if you're using Tor, but then you use a credit card while you're on Tor, well, they're going to be able to know. They don't have to trace your IP address back to your location. They got you using your credit card. But then that can also be a bad thing if, you have someone steal your credit card and they use the Tor network to spend your money. That could make it extremely hard for the law enforcement to find who is trying to steal your identity. But, while you're on Tor, your internet provider can even really keep track of what you're doing. And, eventually technology will get to a point where it'll overcome that. But by then, the hackers out there will have more technology, or they'll be able to gain access to the technology, like in the case of the Tor network, Tor project, where they gain access to the Onion system. It's one of those things where they'll have something new out to try to keep you hidden. So, it's one of those things that, I've dealt with Tor networks for quite a while, and, there's a lot of websites out there that unless you have access through the Tor, you can't find the websites. And, that was the same thing with Silk Road. You had to be able to go through the Tor to find it. It's the hidden internet, like they said in there. They used the term hidden internet. It's also called deep web, deep net. A lot of interesting stuff on the deep net, and, a lot of whistleblowers have used deep net and all that to, transfer documents and, do things like that. And I always put a word of caution out there. If you get an email that comes from a Tor email address, definitely don't open any type of attachments unless it's from someone you know. But definitely Tor network emails. Definitely if you're in alternative media, liberty movement, or, you're on this network or you're doing something else, they've tried to plant, stuff on people's computers using the deep net. And, you could get in some trouble. Just look it up on the internet. Luke Rudkowski, Stuart Rhodes, the guy from Panda, many people. They've tried to set up quite a few. Okay. Let's see where we are on the time. Cool, I got just a little bit more time. That still bugs me with the scanners, trying to basically, hide themselves from the general public. It's just something that's been bugging me. I just closed out the tab and I just see the title and it's just like, something I always kept a ear out on. Listening to police scanners and seeing if there's any breaking things, definitely when, Occupy things were going on. Something that kind of amazed me. GOP pushing immigration amnesty. What happened to GOP? Not is it just a politician flip-flopping, now we got the GOP completely flip-flopping. Well, not quite. I've went ahead and talked to a few Tea Partyists I know, and they assured me that that's not what they're trying to do. And, the establishment GOP is doing this for a reason, and it's to try to make the Tea Partyists look like anti-immigrants. We don't like immigrants. And, they said that the establishment GOP is trying to basically, do a hit on the Tea Party. And they're trying to, basically use what the left has tried to pin the Tea Party as is racist white people. Even though I even know, black Tea Partyists. So, you know, it's definitely, not that. And we've seen what came out of MSNBC, that was completely, idiotic. Okay, I'm gonna have to reload this. I'm just shutting down all my windows. And, of course, it's not going to shut down. That's why I'm having problems. Looks like we have a problem with my browser, which has been extremely prevalent lately. Any browser I try to use. There we go. There we go.
Tea Party activists and other grassroots conservatives are alarmed and outraged over immigration reform proposals by congressional Republican leaders that would lead to amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus insists that the general consensus dictates that major immigration reform must be accomplished this year. Wisconsin Congressman and former vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan says the Republicans are considering a measure that would grant legal status to illegal immigrants, along with a chance for eventual citizenship.
Britain's Daily Mail newspaper has unearthed a photograph of Malik Obama, President Obama's Kenyan half-brother, wearing a Palestinian scarf into which he has embroidered slogans from the Hamas terrorist group. Those statements are, "Jerusalem is ours, we are coming," and "From the river to the sea." The photograph, which was taken at a conference in Yemen in 2010, was published on the website of the Barack H. Obama Foundation, which was founded by the president's half-brother. That foundation was fast-tracked for tax-exempt status by Lois Lerner, the same IRS official who supervised the politically motivated IRS scrutiny of Tea Party's related nonprofits and other conservative advocacy groups.
More than 12 years into the U.S. occupation of Afghanistan, that country's road network is disintegrating. In 2001, Afghanistan had roughly 50 miles of paved roads. Since then, the U.S. has poured $4 billion into road construction, but the U.S.-backed Karzai government has done nothing to maintain them. Almost 20,000 people flee from the unremitting violence of Syria's civil war have crowded into the Yarmouk refugee camp since last June. And some residents report that conditions in the camp have become desperate. According to the AFP, food has grown so scarce in the camp that hungry people have slaughtered and eaten cats, dogs, and at least one donkey.
With the prospect of a potential military conflict between the U.S. and Iran simmering on the back burner, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani used an address at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, to urge business investment in his country. Rouhani's diplomatic efforts yielded at least one small victory when the Swiss government announced that it was suspending its ban on trading precious metals with Iran. In a significant split with the Obama White House, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has announced that he will not support fast-track negotiating authority for the proposed Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. That multilateral trade deal is opposed by both labor groups and by Tea Party-aligned conservatives who believe it would undermine national independence. The fast-track provision would require that Congress either approve or vote down the final trade agreement without modifications.
A peculiar rock photographed on the surface of Mars by the Opportunity space probe has inspired a lawsuit against NASA. Dr. Ron Joseph, an astrobiologist from San Jose, California, has filed a petition for a writ of mandamus that, if granted, would compel the agency to closely photograph and thoroughly investigate the object, which Dr. Joseph believes could be an alien fungus. Dr. Steve Squaris, the NASA official in charge of the Mars rover survey, insists that the object is clearly an inorganic rock.
A brown dwarf is an object in space that is larger than a planet, but doesn't have enough mass to trigger the nuclear reactions that would make it a star. Scientists working in several locations around the globe have trained their instruments on a brown dwarf called Lumen 16b, which is located about 6.5 light years away. Using Doppler imaging, the researchers have been able to learn what the weather is like on that distant object, where surface temperatures exceed 1,000 degrees centigrade, covered by a blanket of heavy clouds that are made up of liquid iron and other heavy minerals.
Interesting. That trade agreement, since they touched on that, everybody should be opposing that trade agreement. There's a lot of stuff in that trade agreement that will definitely hurt America. And I urge people to go research it. I'm not really going to dive into it tonight. Don't have enough time. Maybe we'll do that next Wednesday. But definitely research it, and then you can also join in on the conversation next Wednesday about it. It's one of those things that we have so many fronts that we're fighting the government on. Because about everything you could possibly think of to infringe on some aspect of your life and your rights and your liberties and your freedom and your truth, they're fighting them. Whether it's coming from the establishment progressive Republicans or the establishment progressive liberal Democrats. It doesn't matter. Because what do we have there? People trying to progress big government, trying to grow big government. They are trying to take your rights away. They want your rights. And if they keep going down this road that they're going down right now, They're going to get your rights. They're going to take your freedom. You know, out in Connecticut, you know, all these people that went out and registered their guns, registered their clips. It was a sad thing to see it happening. But then I seen the reports come out about the numbers of people that registered compared to the numbers of those guns and those types of clips and everything that were sold, that showed up in retail. Wow. If those guns and those magazines are still in Connecticut, then there's actually a lot of people that are ignoring Connecticut's new laws that they must register their guns and magazines. They want your guns. That's probably going to be one of the bigger fights, guns and ammo. Because really, with this many pissed off Americans and that many guns in public hands, I think is absolutely the only thing that is preventing government from steamrolling over us. Everybody says, oh, they want an armed revolution. Well, I think that's true. But on their terms. They don't want to publicly incite violence. They want to use dirty tricks to get people to fight each other and then come in and, you know, martial law, take your guns. That's what they want. They tested out down in Katrina. Down in Louisiana. Beta testing. Beta testing. And they know how to do it now. And they'll probably refine it. But, mark my words. They get your guns. It's over. It's over, America. If they get a hold of your guns, I would recommend getting the hell out. If you allowed them to take the rights of the citizens to own their firearms, or restrict it like they already have, but once they take those guns, there's absolutely nothing stopping them. Not when they got so many of the law enforcement willing to step outside their oath that they swore to be henchmen of the government. Those will be the people with the guns. The people you can go find videos on YouTube of them beating people. Look up Kelly Thomas. Those will be the people with the guns. Not all these people, me, all my neighbors that have guns that have never shot anyone, have never put anybody in the hospital, have had guns their whole life. A lot of them are older people. No, they can't have guns according to the government. 70-year-old guy with the AR. Nope, can't have a gun. Can't have that type of gun. But they'll have these people that are all steroid up and authoritarian, and they got their egos out of control, they'll have the guns. So stand up for your rights. Stand up for your freedom. Stand up for the truth. Thank you for tuning in to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Stay tuned.